Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is one of those times where you think you understand something, but it turns out you learn something new. And today is that day. This subject is about the Dia Compe 883 Nippon, and it's going to blow your minds. So Dia Compe's origins go back to the 1930s, where they manufactured brakes for bikes in Japan. And sometime in like 1975, Dia Compe established a US-based location in North Carolina. And later on in the late 80s, a manufacturing facility in Taiwan. Now, I'm not going to get into the great details in the background of Dia Compe because there's plenty of information out there, but I just want to give you guys a time frame as to the relevance to the 883 and what is to be the 882L. In 1984, Dia Compe was tasked with creating a high-end, top-shelf, freestyle brake caliper, hence the 883 was born. This caliper would utilize a ease of maintenance ability, a quick release tab on most of them, and a finite adjustment tool. In this case, a semi-automatic adjustment wheel made by Weinmann. Now, the earliest known 883s showed up in late 1985, and they started using these on 1986 production bikes. So let me know in the comment section what you guys had and what was on your bikes. There were several batches of the 883. All of them used the 7mm Allen head pivot bolt. There were variations of the length of the pivot bolt depending on whether it was being mounted in the front or the back. The length is not so important for functionality as much as the diameter was. The early 883s had the older red brake pads, which would sometimes break apart in use. All of the 883s had the model stamped into the arm and a date code showing the year and the month that they were produced. From 1985 to about 1987, the 883 received a semi-automatic Weinmann brake adjuster that worked in a vertical position. The top features of the 883 was the quick release cam lock, and for those of you who are unfamiliar with what it does, it's a quick release tab that adds slack to the brake cable. It allows you to open the brake arms wide enough to slip the front wheel off for a quick tire repair or just swapping the wheel out altogether. All of this without messing up the cable length or removing the brake pads. Now, just to be clear, the word Nippon, which literally means Japan, is also cast into the front arm. In 1986, Dia Compe released a more economical version of the 883 brake, called the 882L. The 882L is essentially an 883, but with a 6mm bolt and no Allen head. This is the brake most of you are familiar with, and the brake that you see for sale from places like Porkchop BMX. Visually, they are nearly identical, and the 882L even has the 883 molded into the forged arms. The brake pads also changed to the white rubber compound around 1986. That was a much better version of the brake pad. In late 1987 and into 1988, Dia Compe changed the adjuster to their own version, which was an upgrade in my opinion, and adjusts horizontally instead of vertically like the Weinmann. Dia Compe also stopped making the 883 model around this time as well, instead opting for the 882L features with this cheaper 6mm pivot bolt that we've all come to know. Now you would find the 883 on the flagship bikes. So we're talking top tier, top shelf, and things like the RL20 from 1986 for Redline, Hutches. They started moving their way into the GT lineup, and Harrow, of course. But again, we're talking top shelf. So these are the T models or the high end, like the Diamondback Strike Zone. So you wouldn't really find these on entry level, like the Vertigo, the Performers, and things like that. In early 1990s, Dia Compe relocated their manufacturing from Japan to Taiwan and continued making the 882L as the 883 until about 1995. It's also worth noting that you could find the versions of this 882L, some with the Nippon wording and some without the Nippon. So it varied, and my guess is if they were made in Taiwan, you would find them without the Nippon. And of course, there was some leftover stock coming out of Japan. They did have the Nippon. So there's some evidence of this, and I'm not completely sure as to why some with and some without, but they're out there. So there is a little bit of debate as to when the production ended, but somewhere around 1996, 1997, Dia Compe stopped producing the 883, 882L, and they reissued them in 2001, somewhere around there. So the new reissues were a thinner material. They weren't as beefy. in my opinion. Some of the casting was a little different. The word Nippon was not there at all. They were completely void of all of them. And these are pretty much the same mold that you find today when you're ordering them from places like Pork Chop BMX. The brake pads were a little bit lower grade. They're way more desirable in the late 80s, in that era. Those brake pads were top notch, especially on chrome rims. So just some things to think about. Why they changed some of it, who knows? There could be some, they couldn't get the compound or whatever that is. I don't know the exact details. I'm just telling you that there are some differences. Now, just to be clear, there are versions of the 883 and the 882L that don't have the quick release cam. It depends on which way they're set up, either for a rear brake or for a front brake. So there are variations of that, and some of them have the adjusters and some of them don't. So don't be alarmed if yours has it or doesn't have it. So one thing to understand here is that Dia Compe is a very evolved company, and they have a few subdivisions. One of them being Diatech, which handles North America, and then there's Grand Comp, and of course Encyclo, which is most of Europe. Some of these are higher end, a little bit lower end, but the one thing to understand here is that some of these designs are borrowed and loaned. So we did find an 883 that is made by somebody other than Dia Compe. I don't really have a lot of information on it, so if you do know something, let me know in the comment section about who this manufacturer is, and maybe it came before the 883. I don't know. So there you have it. All this time, I've been calling the Nippon an 883, and the truth is, the 883 only exists with the 7mm Allen bolt, and from about 1985 to 1987. Everything else is a 6mm bolt with the acorn style, cone style nut, and it's simply just an 882L. So let me know in the comment section what bike you had, and if you had the 883, whatever version that was, with or without the Allen head bolt, and let me know if you learned something new today. That about wraps it up. Thanks for watching. Please remember, hit that like button. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. It only takes a few seconds so you won't miss any of the upcoming content and videos that I'll be uploading. So get your builds done, make them sweet, and remember, tomorrow's not guaranteed.